We're now joined by Chris Quilty, the founder and managing partner of Quilty Analytics. Prior to establishing Quilty Analytics in 2016, Chris served as a sell-side research analyst with Raymond James for 20 years, publishing hundreds of company-specific, macro, sector, and thematic research reports on the industrial, defense, space, wireless, and communications industries. Chris is widely acknowledged as a thought leader in both the satellite and space ecosystems. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Chris, from your perspective and experience as someone who's watched and assessed the growth of the satellite and space sectors for Wall Street and other financial leaders, what is the state of space in 2021?
I would say that the state of the industry is strong. In fact, I would argue that the current state of the industry is probably seeing some of the best fundamentals we've seen in decades, and that's due to a confluence of factors. Number one, I'd mentioned the regulatory environment has become more favorable. Number two, favorable technology trends, and that's everything from the launch industry to phased array antennas, digital payloads, the development of small sats, and a number of other important technologies that are driving the growth and the cost basis of the industry. And third, there's been a dramatic improvement in the funding environment for space companies, particularly from the venture capital industry, which historically shied away from the industry. If you look at the last 5 years, we've seen literally hundreds of companies funded as compared to less than 70 in the decade that ran from 2000 to 2010. And notably, and equally as important, we're seeing favorable trends in successful exits for companies, which is important for any investor, as we're seeing multiple private equity companies coming into the industry looking to do roll-ups, and even more recently, the emergence of special purpose acquisition companies, or SPACs, which are providing a new path to the public markets. So the bottom line is the industry is no longer solely dependent on the government as its sole source of survival and growth. It's benefiting from increased commercial demand, and we're seeing the emergence of new downstream markets and applications, everything from consumer broadband to weather satellite and space tourism, all of which contribute to the diversity and stability of the overall industry landscape.
So what are the core metrics we should be watching for to assess the strength and sustainability of this marketplace?
Well, intuitively, it starts with the launch market. These are questions like, what are the total number of launches, the success rate, the diversity of launch vehicles and launch sites. A successful 2021 effort sets the path for future growth for the entire industry. Being a finance guy, I'd say number two, a healthy capital raising environment. The space industry, unlike blockchain or cyber or social media, this is an inherently capital intensive industry. And if you fail to feed the beast, the industry is going to hit a wall. The good news is we're seeing continued money coming in from venture-backed space companies. We're also seeing the emergence of new public companies, and you've got activities like SpaceX's Starlink, which are drawing in huge amounts of capital for the industry. Number three, I'd say satellite orders. Traditionally, we'd focus on more the big geo satellite orders. Those were the pillars for a lot of the satellite manufacturing and launch companies, but increasingly, we've seen demand shift dramatically towards small sats, which are a little bit harder to track in terms of order flow. And finally, I'd point out, the financial performance of the public companies. 2020 was a pretty rough year for the industry. We saw bankruptcies of Intelsat and Speedcast and Global Eagle, and many companies experienced some pretty dramatic reduction in their revenue and their profitability. Stock prices have largely recovered from pre-COVID-19 levels, but we need to see the financial performance catch up in 2021.
So with the new administration and Congress starting their terms of office, what should they know about the health and viability of this marketplace?
Well, the U.S. is the global space leader in space, but you can't take that position for granted. Europe has been very active with industrial subsidies, and they've scored a bunch of notable successes in areas like software-defined satellites and optical crosslinks. And we're also seeing a pretty vibrant and growing venture community in coming out of Europe, though with a little bit too much government involvement to my personal liking. The elephant in the closet, though, has emerged, and that elephant, or should I say dragon, is China. China has unambiguously passed Russia as our principal space rival. And unlike Russia, they actually have the economic clout to match their demonstrated technical prowess. On an optimistic note, space technology is benefiting society in a lot of different ways, everything from broadband access to climate monitoring, emergency response, cloud computing, 5G access, and others. And, policymakers can build on these successes and enable the growth of new industries if they get the policies right. So, and I guess finally, on perhaps an uncontroversial note, maybe 2021 could be the year that policymakers finally do the right thing and kill the SLS program before it bleeds NASA dry.
So what do you think will be the space marketplace's biggest achievement for 2021?
I almost hate to circle back to the same subject again, but 2021 may very well be known as the year of the first launch. We've got new launch vehicles that are scheduled to hit the market in 2021, including ULA's Vulcan, Japan's H3, Blue Origin New Glenn, Firefly Alpha, Relativity's Terran 1, ABL's RS-1, you got the SpaceX Starship, and SLS, just kidding. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention two big NASA events that we should expect this year. The launch of the James Webb Space Telescope, and we should hopefully see Boeing's Starliner demo. And then if I switch to the commercial achievements, this should be the year that Starlink enters service on a more than a regional or test basis as they continue to launch new satellites. And finally, one other commercial event I'm going to call out is Telesat's LEO constellation. After years of delay, we'll either get a definitive decision by the company to move forward, or you can stick a knife in it.
Thank you, Chris, for your time and expertise with us today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that. As someone who's been actively involved with this market, your perspective means a lot here, and appreciate your thoughts. We'll be back in a moment for more shared perspectives on State of Space 2021.